wasn't sure when you said that the identity that switches vehicle when it goes into another vehicle after you leave. You talked about its awakening and could awaken slowly, and it would affect the vehicle that it was in at that time, the strain, but the vehicle, the tree, but it would also affect the strain of its offspring. And there's a kink in my computer there.
Well, if we said strain of offspring, we just meant it's just because we were using the word strain as the vehicular tree, and we also used the strain as the mind strain. But we were using in that instance strain just as the tree of the vehicle.
So there's no such thing really as an offspring of a mind.
No, of course not.
Okay.
Well, in a sense, there are many offsprings of the mind, because every time the mind influences somebody, it has an offspring, but not in the sense that you call offsprings as packages of vehicles.
I wondered if it was implied that it would actually be a good thing for the mind that's in its vehicle when it has a different body, if it could maybe not awaken fully, but if it was mature enough possibly to have offspring, maybe by artificial insemination or something, that would probably be a good thing because to pass on that information. Is that true?
Say it again. I don't understand what you're saying. Do you understand what you're saying?
Not totally. Go ahead and repeat it again.
Okay. Well, in the last meeting you talked about that if the mind of the vehicle, when it takes on another body, suppose it had awakened slowly, and because it awakened quite late, it had offspring before it really fully awakened, that it would be passing on a lot of potential to those offspring.
Right, so because in the meantime it's affecting the vehicle, and then the vehicle would, with offspring, pass those characteristics on to it's increasing the capacity of the vehicle.
So I wondered if that meant it was actually, say, preferable for maybe not necessarily to awaken fully, but if the vehicle could have children, possibly by artificial insemination or something, that it would pass on more of that information.
Well, I don't think we'd say it's preferably. I think we'd say it's probably 50-50, because there are things that would be gained by early awakening that would be just as valuable to the overall picture as there would be by delayed awakening. Now, the awakening, of course, is kind of a crazy term to use, because it doesn't happen kaboom awaken, because it's like a time capsule. Certain little bits of knowledge awaken, and then other little bits of knowledge, then other little bits. So it's a drawn out thing, and the mind might awaken to certain things that it had learned while in the vehicle that you're wearing at an early stage, and then other things later, and other things later, and some things it may not awaken to until right before that vehicle dies, right before it's time to leave it. So it's a drawn-out process. And, of course, wherever an offspring is had, if an offspring is had from that vehicle, it would be affected only by what influence that mind had on that offspring, in nutritional changes and habits and so forth at the time that at the point of, or the degree of awakening that had occurred at the time that the offspring occurred. But I don't understand the artificial insemination part of the question.
Well, I guess I was wondering that if the mind should feel like it should try to have offspring, but possibly in a way that would be more next level, and be able to awaken maybe quite a bit, and before it would have offspring, if it were to do it in a more next level way.
It sounds like that if the mind did awaken quite a bit, it would probably prefer to have offspring in that way. because how many times have we talked about it, and it's in that mind. And so it would be ahead of the game in that aspect if it chose to do that before offspring occurred. And of course, then that would also be influenced in the offspring. That kind of thinking would be influenced in the offspring. So that particular characteristic of awakening would be accelerating there.
Well, let me, I guess I don't know where I am, but I don't, what are you talking about in the next life, when the baby, well, see, I don't believe the awakening will take place that quickly. Way down the line it might, but it's going to take a while to germinate and to build up force. I just don't believe the humans would be ready for this that soon. But another thing in
well, that would be like 20-something years.
Oh goodness, I think it'd be longer than that.
No, I'm saying before there would be even a single offspring that, or where a choice might be made.
Well, see, I don't even know that an offspring is the only way. Because if you can influence people considerably without having an offspring. Now, I don't know if the next level will continue to have babies born in that way, whether or not it will be a more test tube type thing, but without it having to go through the female. In other words, in my mind, it's like the female is being punished. If you remember, according to the Bible, and we said it was a legend, or
pretty true, though.
But in a sense, it's pure suffering for a female. I don't care how beautiful they say it is; it's pure suffering. And but the female is programmed to believe that it's beautiful, because of the end results, which they bear, and it grows up to be a beast. So in a sense, it's just programmed. Now, in my mind, the most right way, and I could be wrong, but the way I see it now, in my mind, it seems like it would be more right if they want to use two individuals, but use it in a experimental or in a lab type thing, where they wouldn't have to, the female wouldn't have to go through.
No, I think if I understood Melody right, what she was saying is it possible that the mind that's in her vehicle might awaken enough to choose, if it was still in a generation that felt like it had to have babies, that it would awaken enough to choose artificial insemination as against a regular type.
Well, see, I wouldn't even choose that.
Yeah, see,
that's what I'm saying.
He's talking that.
I wouldn't even choose that.
While he's talking, the thought that I kept having, and I may be completely off base, would be that the minds that are in your vehicles will probably seek test tube vehicles. They'll probably be assigned to test tube vehicles, so that they wouldn't have to go through that situation again, because they don't deserve it.
You have to
see, those minds don't deserve that experience again of a sexual birth. Can you follow that?
Or why should, somewhere it has to stop being this way. And they're in the process of doing it now. Now, whether or not it will be 100 years from now or 50 years, so much has happened in the past 50 years that it could very well happen within the next 10 years, 5 years even. Hopefully we're gone by then, and if we are, then it would definitely be something that minds that you all have influenced could start putting into, using it.
So preparing the way for the minds of your vehicles. Now, just because we said that we feel like the next level has a system of transfer of minds that's automatic, and it happens at the same, or approximately the same time that a death would occur, that a birth is made available for it because it's a natural progression of growth. It wouldn't necessarily be that way in the circumstance of the mind occupying your vehicle. Like the next level might keep the minds from your vehicles in cold storage until an appropriate vehicle is, because we can't imagine, like T's saying, that you would be, that the mind that is in your vehicle would be required to regress. And therefore it should, in all truth, it should pick up a vehicle that matches the discipline that you have brought that vehicle to date with. Can you follow that? And why would it have to go back and go through booze and sex, your birth, and so forth? Again, why would it have to experience those things if it has learned them?
See, it's time now that this be put out. Evidently, it is going into the ether now to make it okay. I think they feel like they're tinkering with creation by doing it now. It's just not proper to have a baby in a test tube and raised in an incubator or some kind of mechanical means.
He's talking about a lot of these righteous creationists who are so opposed.
I'm not talking about the way I feel, because I think it's more advanced that way, and it makes more sense to have better vehicles than what they have now. And which, in my mind, if they're able to correct any genetic flaw in a birth, they ought to be able to do it. It doesn't mean that their mind will be any better, but it does mean that their vehicles will be better. And these vehicles, as you all know, I don't think there's a single vehicle sitting here right now, including T and Doe, who has the perfect vehicle. I'm talking about from the brain of that.
There's not one here who could get a 70 on a scale of 100.
And we're not trying to put you down. I mean, that's realistic. It's but what's inside the vehicle is what is good, which is your mind. And but if they do make a good vehicle for the mind of a human, if the mind of the human has a better chance than it has if it's in a faulty vehicle. You all know that. Nobody?
I just want to check to see if I understood you correctly. When you said, T, that you didn't see this change happening that fast, even like 20 years, then is in relation to what Melody was saying, and what Joe said about the minds of these vehicles don't deserve to go backwards, that it would possibly be that exchange would take place when the humans had reached a level of development to match where our vehicles are today, which could be...
Well, you'd be like the first one. You'd be standing in line waiting. You'd be like the minds of those vehicles would be like the ones that they were prepared for, because there wouldn't be many minds around that would be ready for it. I mean, you would be the experiments, of what the humans would consider the guinea pigs, because they are backward in their thinking.
Well, it may be there. Let me think about it. Let us think about it. It may be sooner. At first, I saw it as a time capsule, one that where the mind that's in your vehicle would even live out lives, but it wouldn't awaken that part of it. The vehicle wouldn't be in a position or a condition to accept the knowledge right away. This is what I was feeling at first. Do y'all know what I'm saying? And it would take a while for the vehicle who take on your mind to be in a physical condition, to be able to accept the knowledge that you have, which would make it kind of like a time capsule. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And but then if that could change, because we don't know what the next level has in store for this vehicle where we're sitting right now. It may be that as rapidly as they're moving along, like we see how the technology is progressing in just about all fields, so much so that they are beginning to, I think they're going to put this huge telescope, where is it, someplace where they can...
In space.
In space. And which means that they'll be able to see a lot more. And, but, of course, they'll only see what they're supposed to see, but somebody else squirts and paint on the end. But what I'm getting at is that we don't know really. All we're doing is speculating right now on what will happen to the human race once we complete our task. But I really feel like we have helped them considerably. We, meaning all of us, in the type of work that you all have been given to do.
To tell you something else, we've helped them, or the next level has helped them, and you have helped them, and you have, in our task as far as sending out thoughts of change of conduct and so forth and so on. But we've also, the fact that we have been here has also spoiled them rotten, because during the time that we have been here, the next level has seen to it that the society which we lived in, since we had to be a part of it, would not experience any significant difficulty. And as a result, the humans in this society that has had no difficulty has become extremely like spoiled brats, where they think nothing of being ugly to anybody. They don't think that they are unaware that someone that they're riding a gravy train. That things are being provided for them. It's just like Plato acts in his cage. If you give him everything and soon he takes it for granted, and if you stick in there your finger in there to pet him, he'll try to peck it, which is just the opposite. Where if you starved him to death and you gave him a little tiny bit when he was hungry, he would look to you and he would be fond of you, and he would be his whole attitude would change. And this is the same thing with the human kingdom, that when I feel very strongly, and this might be all wrong, but that when you leave, that the only way the lessons that you are planting, the seeds that you are planting, will really take root, is for hard times to come, and that those hard times will pay off. Because hard times are not hard times. Hard times are only when it appears to humans to be hard times. And they have to work harder to get everything, and they have to search their souls, so to speak, and they have to honor someone. And when things come their way, when it's so rare for some what they would call a positive to come their way, they're more eager to give the next level credit for it. But when everything is just handed to them as freely as it is right now, they have no concern for anything. And all of this, it even goes over into no respect for the law, no respect for no reserve and moderation on anything, whether it's... and this all came as a part of preparing that the circumstance while you are here be not a difficult one for you. And at the same time, it was making rotten humans out there. Now, one thing is happening. They are the good ones are learning that they are rotten. They know that they are rotten. They look at society and they're saying, this is a rotten society. Just like we talked about the other day about how this little school in Pasadena, they were going to teach kindness and so things like that. In other words, they know that things have gotten very rotten and that it has to change. And it will change when we're gone. And then I feel like the things that you have taught them will really be stimulated in them and have an opportunity to blossom. Even nations look to other nations. Nations aren't enemies when nations both have it bad. When they have it bad, they say, don't I have something that you need because I sure need something you have. Did I say that right? You know what I'm saying? They're eager to exchange and to grow and to develop together, but when they feel independent and self-sufficient, then it's it's lock horns. Anybody want to come and buck me? I would really like to show you how strong my horns are. And so that, unfortunately, is going to have to be corrected. Now, we're not making any predictions of any chaos or any severe Armageddon or anything. We're just saying that things are going to have, in order for the seeds that you've planted to take root, people are going to have to be presented with opportunities that would make them search their soul a little more and have proper fertilizer for those things to take root. There's no fertilizer now. It's just, everything's too easy. They talk about the difficulties now they talk about are inflation and all that. That's because of gravy that there's inflation. Don't you know that? When a dollar is what a nickel used to be, it's only because everything is so gravy. They also forget to tell you that the nickel that you used to make is now $1. You know, it all equalizes out. That the person who back some time ago made $10,000 a year, he now is a poor man if he doesn't make $50,000 a year. So all that, and we say we have trouble in this nation. You know, we don't have any troubles in this nation. It's really a gravy train now, but it goes more and more rotten. You take this, and you have people like the press that abuse the characteristics of this government. So by the leak that they just did on that satellite that will orbit over Russia, and not that we are in favor of the U.S. putting up such a satellite right at the moment when we're trying to shake hands. You know, we say we're about to shake hands on arms agreements, and what do? Just right prior to a summit, we put a spy satellite up. You know, it's almost like a knife in the back. But then, what does the press do? They put a knife in the back of our government by their leaks. Now, they couldn't act that way if the individuals who are a part of the career called press were in a depressed society. They could not act that way.
A while back on one of the tapes, if I remember correctly, you talked about how minds generally tend to seek out, or the mind in a particular vehicle, the whole individual tends to seek out other individuals who have a common level of experience, and they relate to those people more than they do their own siblings, people in their family. I was wondering if after these minds of these vehicles are in other vehicles somewhere down the line, if they will unconsciously seek each other out, or
Well, I think they will certainly be drawn to any knowledge they might hear about others who have like forward thinking. But that doesn't mean that they would compromise their forward motion by seeking them out, because they still won't jive. In other words, like take T's mind and Do's mind. When we became working partners, even though by human standards there were opposites there, but by mind standards, it's what even kept us moving in the right direction. Do you see what we're saying? So, in a sense, it was used as a tool to also help us seek out each other to help our awakening, and that same kind of pattern would cause advanced minds as they awaken to seek other minds that are looking for the same advanced motion. But that does not mean there would be sameness. Do you follow that? That doesn't mean there'd be sameness, because the sameness we said on another lesson was a sameness that would inhibit an experiential pattern, that kind of sameness. It's wrong to go out and find somebody who has so much in common that all you do is just reminisce all your commonness. That's what we're talking about. Well, we haven't done any of that. The sameness is sameness of thought and sameness of goal and sameness of desire for the next level and so forth. Now, that kind of sameness would never be a retardant. It would be an accelerator.
I was thinking in terms of if some of these minds came together, that there would be more force there to further ideals and the thoughts and the ways that we're leaving behind. That's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking so much of, like you were saying, the sameness
Right.
where they reminisce about their common.
Between one of our main things that humans are going to put up an artificial comment system.
Yes, Tia and I told Joel something about it, but we didn't know much about it.
It's kind of controversial among the scientists because some of them feel that they're changing the approach to space. In other words, before they've just gone up and observed things, but now they're going to go up and make something happen. It's sort of a different approach than you guys ever taken.
Who's putting it up?
Well, I think there's some Germans and some British and some Americans, 3 different teams working together or something like that. Anyway, I was wondering if it is appropriate for them to go up and sort of cause things to happen in the heavens rather than just go up and be an observer.
They're going to put a piece of junk up in space that'll burn out and look like a Ramadan.
It's going to be a big explosion or some kind of a chemical that will cause a glow or something.
It'll be for Christmas. Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really Christmas, but it's anyway.
We don't think it matters. Now,
So that isn't-
we don't think it's that significant. Now, whether or not it leads to, down the line, more people doing just spending a lot of money and effort on things that are less scientific forward motion, that would certainly be wasted effort. You know, if that starts a trend, but I really doubt that it's going to start any trend.
I don't think the purpose of it is to study the solar wind. There's nothing, I mean, you're not trying to put on a show or according to Darwin.
Oh, what we read said it was that it was also a Christmas show, so to speak. Is it going to be on Christmas?
Yes. I keep saying that the scientists are denying that it's for a show, but then the way the article's written, saying,
Oh, of
well,
course.
in fact it is. But,
Well, that's because they want to deny that it.
but the controversy is whether they're making space into a laboratory where they can go up and perform experiments as opposed to just going up and observing it.
Oh, well, T and O aren't against lab stations. If you got that, what do you call it?
Space station.
Space Lab?
What do they call it? Platforms and stuff. You know, actual things out there. That's gonna bring a lot of good things.
You all heard where the Russians sent up some, what do they call them, cosmonauts? to make contact with Haley Comet. But they said in 18 months. I thought it was in October of next year it was supposed to come in. Wasn't it 18 or 16 months, something like that?
Could be one of the things that's supposed to be take the apex in March of 86.
Supposed to be October of 85 is what it must be getting to see it. That's what I heard just recently.
March,
They last say.
from March of October 85
October 85 to March.
to March of 86? That long?
You wrote it? Change his theory.
Wanted to check my understanding on something. Some time ago, I may be wrong, but I remember seeing some kind of newscast about a group of individuals who lived, I think it was on the East Coast around Maine or somewhere like that, and I think they called themselves the Walruses, and they were a group of mainly older people past their 40s who would get together, and every weekend, especially during the winter months, they would all get together and take a sauna, get really warm, and then they'd go out and jump in an ice-cold lake. And there was kind of two questions. One was, they seemed all really healthy, and I was wondering how good that was for their vehicle.
Well, you can do that in a health spa. You know, when this vehicle was in the world, it belonged to a health spa, and you would get into the whirlpool. You could go into the sauna, steam room, and then into the whirlpool, whatever you like, and then jump in ice water. They
And
suggest
they
that.
kept it,
ice
ice water.
cubes all around.
Yeah, they kept floating ice
It
in
wasn't
the...
just ice water, it was huge ice. Come up with it in your ears. Air.
Don't know if
I
it's
don't know.
necessary, but it doesn't do any harm.
It's supposed to be healthy, but I don't care about doing it anymore.
One thing I noticed from the newscast is some individuals really enjoyed it. They really get a charge out of it and kind of...
It's stimulating.
Yeah. Like the highlight of the whole week or something. And other individuals kind of dreaded it, and they weren't really happy until after they got out and they were warm again. And I was
Yeah,
just
last
wondering...
time I was to be warm.
I was wondering if that was indicating, like the individuals who liked it, harmony with the mind that was occupying the vehicle and the vehicle, whereas the disharmony would be the person who didn't like it was the vehicle or the mind that didn't like it, as opposed to the other which did.
Well, there had to be some degree of disharmony there, or they wouldn't be choosing to do it. You know, in other words, the mind's making them do it, even though the vehicle's balking.
Could it be the other way around?
Huh?
Could it be the other way around? The vehicle's making the mind do it?
Well, I think it's just a matter of wanting to belong to a group. I don't know if it's really that technical.
Yeah, because it could be different in each individual's case.
I don't think they have to...
Showmanship could be a lot of the, you know, just getting attention in that way. And a life of boredom, we were talking a moment ago about such an affluent society that they're spoiled brats, and they would have better things to do than play the walrus game if they...
One other thing, as this compares with like athletes and individuals put a lot of effort into anything. Some seem to really enjoy it, and they can concentrate on it very well. It's like the vehicle and the mind are really in harmony. They have the same type of programming, whereas others, in very different degrees. Is that just indicating harmony of the programming of the mind and programming of the vehicle that mind is entered? Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, but I don't know how valuable it is. I don't know what there's to be gained necessarily, because it's like, well, let's say that mind in a vehicle, and the vehicle's fairly healthy, and so it doesn't give it much back talk, and it can get a certain kind of performance out of it. But does it get any significant performance out of it, or does it just run a race or a marathon, and that's not significant performance. And because to us, significant performance is change and improvement in conduct and habit and ways, and exercising your interest in the development of thought and science, and becoming a part of forward motion. I mean, to have a vehicle in harmony and be good circus act, there's no plus gained there, as against someone who has a vehicle that won't cooperate with the mind, and they can't be a good circus act. You see what I'm saying? There's no plus one way or the other. Actually, the mind that's in a vehicle that's giving it more difficulty might grow more because of the difficulty of the vehicle than the mind who's getting more cooperation out, because it's choosing to do such insignificant actions with a vehicle that isn't walking. And so what I'm saying adds up to we wouldn't find any particular value in physical perfections to any extreme. Like, we feel like it's good for humans to keep their vehicles healthy enough that they have good circulation, and they have good colon, and they have good mobility as much as possible. But to go beyond that is more like is beneath them. It's acting more like trained animals. When we see humans on television doing dance acts or circus acts or even Olympics and all, even the effort they put into such insignificant end result. All you can do is say is, I finally succeeded to jump 1 inch further than anybody else could jump, and so I got a gold medal. Well, that's a put down for a human, for his whole life to go into that jump. Now, that really is. It's a put down for the human. And we like to see them, the discipline is the only thing plus we see coming from that, because we know that required a lot of discipline. But we would have rather seen that discipline been applied to more significant areas of change.
And all it does is elevate them. And they do it strictly for the money. I mean, they say
the money and the recognition, that's right.
Which the money isn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I wonder if you could help me understand a little more clearly how, before a mind is like, take the minds that are presently in these vehicles that will go on to other vehicles, how those minds will influence those vehicles before the vehicles have started to awaken. In other words, the qualities of the minds won't really be expressed, will they? But at least that's the way I perceive it. Yet,
did we say that they would influence those vehicles before the minds awaken in those vehicles?
maybe you didn't, I don't know.
Or are you getting that confused with something else?
Possibly. What I was trying to...
We did say that your minds now are influencing the homework that you're now doing, are influencing certain individuals that are preparing the way for vehicles to be inhabitants of the minds that are now in your vehicles.
Okay. I was...
Run that by again. Don't understand what...
Well, I was trying to understand how, when the minds of these vehicles go into other vehicles, they will open up those vehicles or somehow increase the potentials of those vehicles.
Well, no, the potential has to be there when the mind enters it.
That's all right.
The potential, it's just like we've used the computer thing and the programmer, and the vehicle has to be capable of handling what the programmer can put into it. Now, and in a sense, the vehicles, even though they're very, very primitive, the vehicles are ahead of the mind, in a sense, because they're just they're just capacities, they are just facility, and it's true that some vehicles may inhibit because of damage to the vehicle or disease might inhibit the mind that's occupying it, and therefore it would have to sublimate the effort that it would have done in a certain direction. It will sublimate that effort in another direction and learn experiences it would not have learned otherwise.
I guess I misunderstood what I thought you were saying before, but I thought there was something to the effect that the vehicles that the minds that are presently in these vehicles would go into would benefit extremely from...
Well, that's true, because all the time that that vehicle is in that, all the time that mind is in that vehicle, it's going to make that vehicle live in accordance with the standards and ways of that mind.
Okay.
And it will have an influence in that way upon that vehicle, because it's going to make that vehicle toe a certain line. It's going to give it direction. It's going to give it repetition in the areas of the kind of conduct that mind has developed to at that point. And the pursuit of interests of that mind will also show in the vehicle, because what the vehicle participates in, what it eats, what it, everything, the exercise of the brain, everything would be improved by an advanced mind. It's like, but let's take a lesser mind, other than one of the minds of your vehicles. In that same vehicle, those facilities might be present but have never been exercised. But you put your mind, the mind of your vehicle, in those new vehicles, it will cause a lot of functions of the vehicle that no other mind would have been able to put in function. Plus, not only function, but it would make it hold the straight and narrow. I mean, it would see repetition of that function. It would pursue interest and advancement that would lock in, and the vehicle would benefit by it.
I think I possibly misheard something. I was trying to compute, but what I thought I had heard was that even before the minds in these vehicles awaken in the next vehicle, that the vehicle that they occupy, they would benefit the vehicle somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe this one then.
It's just exactly what y'all just got to say. In a sense, there's no way for the mind that's in your vehicle, the one that will continue on, for it to go astray. All of that? Do you understand what I mean by astray? In other words, it has a stronger opportunity to become a member of the next level in the future. But then again, it still has a choice of not doing it. But we can almost bank on it, making it.
Well, let's take this aspect, too, of what Andot is talking about. When the mind that's in your vehicle goes into another vehicle, as a child and so forth, as an infant and starts up, it's true that it's going to influence it, because it has the task of awakening it. And it's that mind that is going to awaken it. It's not the vehicle that's going to awaken the mind.
Well, I still believe, though, see, this is what we were talking about just a little while ago. That's where we came in. In my mind, the vehicle may not be in a position for it to totally awaken, because I don't know if it will be the right time.
No, I'm not saying that it will totally awaken.
Oh, just
No.
a little bit.
Yes, no, but
It's a slow process.
Yes, but I'm saying whatever degree of awakening occurs, you could not give the vehicle credit for that awakening.
Oh, no.
You would give the mind credit for that awakening.
The mind will be much more advanced, but than any other. But it may not show up as strongly as it will in the years, whenever it's the right time.
Now, what will be the indications of the mind, of the degree of the mind awakening in that vehicle? What will be the characteristics that would indicate that that mind is waking up in that vehicle? Just the physical characteristics or the habits? No. The kind of thinking and the conduct and the society around it would consider it revolutionary thinking, because it would be very forward thinking and very restricted, very restrained, very stubbornly restrained conduct. Do you follow that? Not revolutionary in the sense that you've experienced in society here, where the revolutionary elements were the ones who broke down all barriers of restraint. This would be in the opposite direction.
If they awaken too soon, then they would be considered too odd, and all of the knowledge would be wasted. So in a sense, it's got to be at the right time, and I'm sure the next level has that trigger figured out when it would happen. So, Roddy?
Some 3 meetings ago, I think you brought up an analogy of how a human might be in a position where he's faced with killing another human or continuing on his career. And that mind, at that point, has a choice. And with this discussion tonight, the thought kept coming back to me, where does conscience fit? Is that the mind, or is it both the programming in the vehicle, or is there a...
I'm sorry. Can you have to run it by me again?
At that time, when he's making that decision, what enters into that decision-making? Because what he mentioned about these minds in our vehicles that will continue on, they almost have a free ride, or not, that's not really the right word, but they have a far better opportunity than most minds out there to make it to the next level. And that man that is faced with that decision and opts to take a lower action, is it because of the development of his mind, or the development of the vehicle, or both of them?
No, it's the mind.
Okay.
It's the mind. And the one little cliche that humans have right is when they say that, even though they don't have it in the right place, but when they say that God created man equal, it's not right in the way they say it. But he did give all life forms equal opportunity to develop and even one day into the kingdom of heaven. Now, in order to give them that equal opportunity, the choice had to be theirs at every crossroads. And he presents them with all crossroads that would ultimately lead them in the right direction. And in the process, a lot of those crossroads would also lead them in the wrong direction, and should they choose to make it. Now, they had to have the freedom to make the choice to opt to go wrong. And if a characteristic had developed so strongly in that mind of greed or selfishness, and that it overrode the characteristics that were developing in a good direction, it would opt to then start down its own self-destruction path. And that would be like the crossing over the hill, a serious choice, like the individual you're talking about. Now, T said something a moment ago that if you apply it to what you just said, and I hadn't thought of it before T said it, but I don't believe that the minds that are in your vehicles really have, don't you think that wrong if I say it. I don't believe they have a choice but to make it to the next level. But it's not that they don't have a choice. It's that you wouldn't be in them. You wouldn't be cohabitating with the minds of those vehicles had those minds not come to a point to deserve the cohabitation with your mind. Now, you have taken them so far, so fast, in a right direction. That it's not that they don't have a choice. It's that they have already reached the point of no return. Now, when T was talking about how long it might take for the knowledge to germinate, when you actually consider that the minds of all of these vehicles are going to enter the kingdom of heaven. In other words, they're going to make it through the end of, they're going to make it, they're going to be around until this human civilization develops till a core of it, a few of it, are beginners in the next level, right? Now, the knowledge that you have put in them is going to take them a long way in that process. It won't supply them. Well, I don't know. I can't actually say that, whether it would supply them to the end or not. That would depend upon whether the next level thought that, let's say, when we leave, it depends on how much they know, how much the minds that are in these vehicles know, whether or not the next level would decide that it supplied them to beginners, or whether the next level had sent somebody else to help them through one more phase and to lead them into beginners. Or it might supply them to the point where they could begin to actually physically cooperate with the next level without battles. And then there wouldn't need to be sending someone else to enter vehicles and go through the kind of classroom situation that... Now, can you understand? Can you understand that? Can you follow that kind of thinking? Do we need to run that by again, or everybody follow it? Follow it? Is your head reeling?
Well, the thought crossed my mind that if, since we have taken them so much further than any other minds would have gone on their own, wouldn't also the thirst of the mind, the desire for accelerated growth, for faster lessons, for greater knowledge be kind of a draw on the next level, kind of pulling the next level in closer anyhow to, well, not answer their prayers, but it seems like
they will look to the next level.
Be looking so much harder to the next level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every time you sit here at a meeting and get every time you sit at a meeting and get cooperation from the mind in that vehicle, we've got two minds listening. I mean, when it's totally cooperating. And every time that happens repetitiously, that mind is listening and really wants to learn, then it gets a stronger root of looking to the next level. A stronger and stronger desire and thirst for knowledge. And that thirst can't help but blossom in the vehicle that it occupies after your departure. It'll be there. That's the reason we say we want you to get maximum cooperation out of your vehicles, not only so that it doesn't give you back talk, but because what it's going to do for the world, if you have gotten it trained well enough that it appreciates its performance. Do you understand that? It's just like if a human is training an animal, once it gets the animal proud of his little feat that he can do, then he can do a whole lot on his own. Do you see? And he has a pride in it. And we like to see a little pride come into your vehicle, or the mind of your vehicle, in this kind of conduct. Now, we know that it has still so much deeply ingrained residue of the primitive world that it was in prior to your cohabitation in that vehicle with it, that you still get when the mind doesn't feel good, or it's certain things have occurred and caused it to act up, it still listens to a lot of the tapes of the genes. Do you know what I mean by that? It listens to the tapes of the genes. Do you follow that? Because it's listening to the things that were ingrained in the genes prior to your occupancy. Now and that had a lot of time to get that deeply rooted in those genes. This a long time was going there. I'm not talking just about prior to your visit in that vehicle, but also in generations prior to it. So, and even the time you've been there, I don't think with any of the class equals the time that that vehicle had in its own genetic expression prior to your entering. Did you follow that? And those don't match in any of you, right? No? Well, we don't have anybody that's only 16 at this point or whatever it is. How long have you been in class? You've been in class 10 years when? This spring?
9 years.
It'd be 10 years this spring?
75.
Huh?
It'll be 10 years for me next Halloween.
Next Halloween would be, some it would be 10 years this spring. Okay, now, and you must have come in prior, your mind must have related to that vehicle a year or two, maybe 3, prior to that. So that meant if it was even an equal influence on that vehicle, then we would have to have some individuals not with vehicles not older than 26. You know, we don't have anybody that young, right? Do we have anybody that young? One?
Who?
Who? Dorothy? How old is your vehicle?
26.
26, so it's about equal. Just about equal as far as time span. If your next level mind entered that vehicle as much as 2 or 3 years prior to teacher relationship. Can you follow that? Which may or may not be so. But even so, and of course in Dorothy's case, he had a period where the influence wasn't, where direct influence wasn't as strong for a period of time. But I think the point is made that you're still getting backlash of emissions of genetic readings, even when the mind of the vehicle would like to cooperate. But the mind of the vehicle has a history of many generations of listening to the genetic play-by-play. It has only a few years of obedience to the mind, your next level mind. Do you follow that? So it still has a very strong temptation every time a tape is emitted from the genes of the vehicle. It has very strong temptation to listen to those genetic emissions. And that's why you try to be very, very keen, your next level mind tries to be very, very keen, and say to the mind of the vehicle, don't listen to it. Don't you listen to it. You've listened to that long enough. And you've tried everything on doing that. And we think that you've even gotten a great deal of control of that, to the degree that you can actually, for the most part, at this point, even recognize that it is the tie of the vehicle with other genetic-related individuals that are sending you those signals, even though we said at times you're still getting signals from those vehicles. But it did you no harm to treat them as if it was all coming from an outer source. But it would defeat you if you, it would be more difficult for you, and unfairly so, if you thought that those emissions were all coming from your source. Because if you thought that way, not only would it tend to want to send you on a downer, but you would not do your homework in your telephone connection with the like gene relationships to the world. And if you're going to prepare yourself a home for that mind of that vehicle, you've got to have an often and very active telephone line to all genetic relationships in the world. Because that's the best way you're going to prepare your house for your vehicle. The brain just does not want to go through all this. It's like, well, now when are you going to get back to English?
Well, at a previous meeting, Bill said, he said that when the idea came up that the minds that are in these vehicles would be going to other vehicles, and he said, you hope that someone pregnant now that's with the vehicle, and I thought tonight that I might be looking at the developments in test tube conception with a lot more interest.
That's right. That's right. Because I must admit it hadn't occurred to us before, but it does seem unfair that you would have to take so many primitive steps, or that the mind of those vehicles. We're talking. It's funny. We're talking to a bunch of schizophrenics. But there's fortunately there's an immense age difference between the two individuals occupying those vehicles, even though the older one is existing under an extreme handicap, and the younger one is existing under the most advanced conditions that could ever be afforded it. You see what I'm saying? Because it's interesting when you realize that the older mind is the one that is extremely handicapped in this circumstance. The wise one and the young one that shares that vehicle with you is having a real experience of forward motion.
I don't know how to relate this other than it seems like the vehicle's mind, not me, understands what's going on, or am I just dreaming? It seems like the mind of this vehicle pretty much is not in too much conflict with what's being said, or it doesn't give me a bunch of problems with it. It's the vehicle I can feel wants to do the human thing, but the mind, it doesn't seem to be that big of a conflict. Does it mean that...
It means you've been doing your homework. It means you've been doing your homework because you're getting more cooperation. It's just like, now, it doesn't really understand it.
Okay.
It's the next level mind that understands it. But it's the mind of the vehicle that when we're giving you information like this meeting tonight, the mind of the vehicle is saying, oh, well, that fits. And I should have expected you would come up with something like that. But the next level mind, remember, as we give you more information, we're bringing in recall. You see what we're saying? We're bringing in recall to the next level mind. But to the mind of the vehicle, we're giving information that isn't too much out of line with what the mind of the vehicle has grown to expect. That's the next lesson.
Sometimes and I'm not saying this is with you, Arthur, but sometimes I know with my vehicle, I think, I have a very cooperative vehicle, but yet I have to watch that because sometimes it's pretty cagey, it only makes me feel that way, but yet I catch it in other ways and have to make it behave itself. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's a feeling of making you think it understands and it's okay, it agrees with what you're doing and all that malarkey. But what it's really doing is in a sly way trying to do it in another way, doing what it wants to do in another way. And the key to that, I'm telling you this because of the experience that I have. Only today was I aware that my vehicle was thinking of something and not even aware that I was thinking it until it hit me like an explosion, and I thought, wow, this sly old vehicle, here it's giving me the impression that it's doing okay, and now what is it doing but thinking of something that shouldn't be thinking of.
Now, he's not talking about the mind of a vehicle. He's talking about genetic tapes
Right.
trying to express themselves.
Now, but your vehicle, the key thing to make you aware when your vehicle's conning you is when you think everything is okay and your vehicle is real cooperative with you.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
That's when you have to look more closely at your vehicle because it's conning you.
Right.
And what you want to do is figure out a way to correct that. And when your mind feels like your vehicle is cooperative, that's when it's right. You can say, well, how can you tell? Well, there's just no way.
But don't trust it either way.
Right,
Don't trust it. Anytime you think you're in a pretty good place, don't trust it.
What you need to do is when you think that, then you have to be on guard and start looking at yourself a little bit more critically.
Right.
You understand that? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Because it may be just a little thought that you pass someplace and say, oh, that reminds me of such and such, That is no for you, just like it would be to think of something more severe, It isn't, it's just the habit not habit, but it's just the characteristic of the brain, or the genetic structure, or whatever it is, the tape in the genetics, in the genes that is being played at the sight of seeing something, because it just opens the door for a tape. When you all went out to do your shopping, I bet you all could, doors were open right and left.
And those eyes are, your eyes are really stimulus to the genetic expression.
You just had to, I'm sure, had to fire it off. But what you want to do is be keen to it so that you can correct it. But now, I'm not saying, again, I'm saying, Arthody, I'm not saying that's the case with you, but using that as an example, make sure that when your vehicle makes you feel like it's real cooperative and going along with you, then a light should go off in your brain to say, or in your mind saying, something's wrong here. I wonder what it's going to do, What is my vehicle going to do now? I've got to get on guard.
You said everybody start doing that.
Okay. We'll talk to you again. Let's save this box of candy for you.
Person leaves for out-of-craft task. McGoody?
That's really generally about
Well, that thought is not a fair one because he's going to be changing tasks here shortly. When does he leave right now?
6:50.
Sam Moody?
Could be wrong, I think we're voting between 6 and 6:15.
Between 6 and 6:15. You leave between 6:10 and 6:15. When is the last person get up? Turn the tape off for a minute. And we're going to have a chorus for 5 minutes. I'm being a little playful, but we're going to have we're going to do a little task, and you're going to write down what you're going to say. Our bell will be rung at 6 o'clock a.m. Tolo, are you up at that time? You're on the serial crew? Okay. And then Tall Odie will say, from the middle of the craft, like in here, in a fairly loud voice, not loud enough for the neighbors to hear it, but loud enough for it to be heard through the craft, right after the bell rings. In other words, the bell will ring, and Tall Odie and his crew can see that the bell rings right on the nose at 6. And then Tall Odie will say, now let us say together. And you pick right up from when he says, now let us say together, wherever you are, when you hear that bell ring, you drop. In other words, you sit. Whether you're in the hall or you're in the rest chamber or wherever you are, and you don't have to come to one place. We want it to sound throughout the craft. Okay? So wherever you are, you sit, but you don't lean. And you can sit on a chair, or you can sit on the floor. And you sit just right on the nose of when you hear that bell ring. And then Tall Odie says, now let us say together. And then you say, all of you in unison, say, I am a member of the kingdom of heaven. I am only a member of the kingdom of heaven. The second line. I was sent here to do a task. I want to fulfill that task as quickly as possible. I want to constantly remember who I am, what that task is, and its urgency. Until we sit together again. Okay, Tall Odie, you want to read the whole thing?
Okay. In unison, I am a member of the kingdom of the heaven.
No.
A member of the kingdom of heaven. I am only a member of the kingdom of heaven. I was sent here to do a task. I want to fulfill that task as quickly as possible. I want to constantly remember who I am, what that task is, and its urgency until we sit together again.
Got it, Annie Odie?
I am only, underline only.
On the second line. Now,
You're not a member of the human kingdom. You are only a member.
you don't want to say it as fast as Tall Odie just said it. In other words, you're going, this is why I made the joke of saying that we're going to have chorus. And Tall Odie is going to lead the chorus. Because he's going to give you the lead in. And he's not going to say, now let us all say together. The bell is going to ring, and he's going to say, now let us say together, and then you say. And you say it at about that pulse. So now let's do it. Okay, I'll play Tall Odie. And now let's bring Tall Odie the bell. How do you ring the bell when you ring it for consuming? You ring it any particular way?
I just ring.
you know how to ring that bell and ring it 3 times? Okay. Why don't you do that? That'll give you time to get in a sitting position. Okay. Now ring it, and I'll play Tall Lodi. Now let us say together, I am a member of the kingdom of heaven. I am only a member of the kingdom of you're ahead of me. Okay? I want you to get a pulse about it, and I want you to really get the weight of meaning into the words. Let's start over. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now let us say together, I am a member of the kingdom of heaven. I am only a member of the kingdom of heaven. I was sent here to do a task. Go ahead.
I want to constantly remember who I am, what that task is, and its urgency, until we sit together again.
Okay. Now, and we want you to say it, and we want your eyes closed. You're going to sit, you're going to close your eyes, and you're going to say this. And you're going to say it in a strong enough voice that if you're here, someone down the hall and in the next room and so forth will hear you. So they're saying it with you. It's not something you'll say quietly. And we'll do it a time or two again before we leave. Now, let's go through a little bit of what it says. Like T pointed out, that the second phrase, I am only a member of the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean, Pamodi?
It's not a member of the kingdom.
That's right. It means it's my next level mind speaking, and everything else is going to be subservient to it. And I'm going to keep it that way. That's what it means when you say, I am only a member of the kingdom of heaven. Now, also when you, what does it mean when you're saying, I want to constantly remember? What does that mean, Rodi? What is it going to mean to Rodi?
It means that I wouldn't allow any thoughts or anything else to come into his brain.
What time? What span of time are you talking about?
Forever.
No, that's not what this way it was designed.
Well, I mean, it's
But read that whole last phrase, and what does that mean?
I want to constantly remember who I am, what this task is, and its urgency, until we speak together again. So while I am here in this vehicle, I want to remember who I am, what my task is, until I get back to the next level and get to my other.
Okay, which brings up another point. Until we sit together has a double meaning. Until we sit together again has the strongest meaning that it will have to you is until I'm sitting together with other members of the kingdom of heaven. But a secondary meaning that it has is until we are saying this again, until I'm sitting with the rest of my class members who are on this task. So what it's telling Rodi, it's reminding him that 6 a.m. time is reminding him that at his autocraft task, on his way to his autocraft task, all day long at his autocraft task, he's going to try to remember who he is and what his task is, and that he wants to accomplish his task as quickly as possible. He's going to try to keep that on his conscious mind while he does everything else. And then he is going to try to sustain it until 8 p.m. And then at 8 p.m., when he says it again, he's going to try to sustain it until 6 a.m. He's going to try to have that thought sustained in his head during his rest, and any time that he might awaken during his rest, he will keep that thought on his mind so that he will try to remember who he is and what his task is and the urgency of his task to be completed. are fulfilled. Do you all understand that? So you're thinking of two ways of until we sit together again. One is until I'm sitting together with my class, and the other one is until I'm sitting together with other members at the next level. Now, any questions so far? And Dodie?
So, would it be appropriate we can say this to ourselves any time of the day?
Yes, but mainly you want to feel it. You want to check yourself. You don't want to say it so much that it loses its potency. You want to check yourself to see if you are, by your attitude and your thinking, if you're remembering who you are. But see, I'm not saying it. I'm just checking myself to see if I'm remembering who I am and that I was sent to do a task and that task is urgent. I'm not saying this thing. You see what because I don't want to say it word for word, except at 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. But I can still check to see, am I coming from a place that is remembering who I am and that I am a member of the kingdom of heaven? In other words, but I'm not going to say it just like this. I'm just checking myself on those things, because you don't want this to become old.
Take the power of goodness again. Because I don't think you fully understood the power of goodness, because some didn't put it into effect. You can say the words, but unless you know what they mean and what they feel, and then you put them into effect, then they're worthless. Now, using this answer to what Dodie asked, whenever you're doing something, whether you're in craft or out of craft, what comes into your mind, like let's say, for instance, at this time of the year you see Christmas on television, and everywhere you go you see it, and you it's all family oriented. You know, it's get together with the family and all like that. And those thoughts that you have of thinking about, that your vehicle has, of thinking about the family that you had when you were in the world, that those are not next level thoughts. And you're wasting your time thinking about them. And you've got to reach a place where you think nothing of the human world. In other words,
no thoughts of
no thoughts. In
that
other
humans
words,
would think.
Remember, the next level, when they go to the next level, they don't think of what they went through in the human world. They've dropped that part of it. They don't have to carry it around any longer. And you will find that 9/10 or 10/10 of your trouble is caused by thoughts that you allow to come in. Because if you're thinking of something that causes your vehicle trouble, and somebody comes to you and says something to you, then it can cause you to have a poor response. Now, but if you had your next level mind in, you wouldn't be offended. You wouldn't have any problems. So, in answer to your question, Dodie, what you want to do is make sure that you remember who you are at all times. You don't have to go through all of this, only at those times. But you should make sure that you know what thoughts go into that mind, or into, let's say, originate from the vehicle, and what your mind allows your vehicle to think. I know I have to watch my vehicle, I'm sure Doe does too. And the vehicle can be very sly. Before you know it, one thing leads to something else, and until you have just a big old picture going on in your brain.
It's like we said the other night, don't trust the vehicle. Don't think that, well, it feels like it's in a good place, so I must be coming from a next level mind place. Don't trust it. Now, you're going to say to yourself, now what, let's see, you said that the bell will ring and Odie will say what he has to say, and if Odie has laryngitis, somebody else can say it. But I'm sorry, tall Odie. And then you're going to say, after we say it, that's not 5 minutes. Where's the rest of those 5 minutes? The rest of those 5 minutes is you're going to sit there with your eyes closed, saying that over strongly to yourself and in silence until you have brought meaning to it, until it is alive, until it is not words, until you have brought that next level mind back in enough for it to be so, what you're saying. You follow that? And then tall Odie and his crew will ring the bell at the end of 5 minutes. Now, I don't see any reason why, tall Odie, I don't know why you couldn't do it again at 8. Okay? Is there any reason why you can't? Okay. 8 p.m.?
You'll be the chorus leader.
You've been such a good chorus member that you get to lead the chorus. Okay? Question? What is your question?
Well, the steel crew, that's the time that they usually come in to prepare all the things that have to happen
Well, we said that we want you all to work
But
out
for
those
that,
kinks.
you've got to work that out so that 5 minutes just interrupts things. Everything just stands still for that time. No, it doesn't mean everything has to be out of the way before it. And it just means that for that 5 minutes, everything stands still. Questions, Dylan?
Maybe this is unimportant, but say the circumstance came up where one of us was called to our task but wasn't available, say 3 o'clock.
If for any reason you are not in the craft for that 5 minutes, you try to the best of your ability to at least mentally observe it wherever you are for that 5 minutes. And as closely as you can observe it without causing a problem where you are. Like if the body's called in or if you're called in or anybody else. But be aware of the time. Hear the bell ring in your head and do your work for 5 minutes and then hear the bell ring again and start yourself off. Why don't we, just for a couple of times, just for rehearsal, why don't those sitting over there, Junodi and Serfodi, Levodi, and go down in the room, some in the fiber lab and some in the upper room, turn the dryer off a minute, and some of you all over here, only leave 3 or 4 in here, and I want you to just spread out in the craft, and we're going to do it a time or two. And use your voice strong enough so that, now the first, turn the tape off.